Welcome to pre-lab video 2 of 3, where we walk through simple linear regression assumptions, talk about those assumptions, and then actually get into running the regression. So for simple linear regression, 3 of our assumptions are exactly the same. We have normality, linearity, and outliers, and we run these exactly the same way as we've been running them in the last couple of weeks. We run them before we actually get into the regression or whatever inferential procedure we're running. Homogeneity of variance is a little bit different because we are looking for a uniform spread of error throughout the predictor variables, so throughout the levels. And we do this by creating a residual plot. And unlike all of the other assumptions, we run this with the regression. So not beforehand, it's actually run at the same time as the regression. This slide deck walks through running assumptions of normality, linearity, and outliers with Chapter 5, Dataset 1. We've actually seen this dataset before last week. It talks about income based on education. So I'm not going to walk you through running the first 3 assumptions with this data set, but if you need to check back to remember how to do that, there's the slide deck and also the pre-lab recording. I will walk you through how to run a simple linear regression and test for homogeneity of variance. So I'm going to go into my, my data set, and I'm going to run simple linear regression and at the same time test for HOV. To run a regression on income and education, you go to Analyze, Regression, Linear, simple linear regression. Pretty straightforward. And what I need to do now, ignoring my z-score variables, I will put one variable in the dependent and one variable in the independent list. This is going to be given to you in your assignment, which one is going to be dependent and which one is independent. My dependent variable is going to be my income for this data set, and my independent variable will be education. So we're looking at how education varies by income. So when we calculate our R-squared, we'll be able to tell what percentage of our income variable is determined by our education. And we'll also be able to predict somebody's income based on their level of education that wasn't in this data set. So once you do this, you put your income, independent, education, and independent. You will click on plots. And this is where we go to get our residual plot. So what we're going to use is zpred and zresid. So this is the z of our predictor variables and z of our residual. And you can use, to remember which goes where, definitely use this slide deck. And this walks you through a simple linear regression as well. So we see we're going to put the residual on the y, zresid goes on the y, and zpred goes on the x. Let me go back to my data set. Zresid goes on my y. Where did it go? Zresid goes on the y, and zpred goes on my x. Let me go back to here. And then you will go ahead and click continue. And then click OK. And I get a bunch of information in my regression outputs. And we'll talk about each of these outputs in a little bit more depth in lab. But you'll notice down here we have a scatter plot. What we think is a scatter plot, it's not actually a scatter plot. This is it is a scatter plot, but this is where we're looking at even spread of error based on our regression standardized predicted value and our regression standardized residual.